This is Obsidian ASMR. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future videos. Hey, and welcome back to another Obsidian ASMR video. And today, or tonight, we will be going through the second part of my colossal PlayStation 2 collection. Last time we talked about stuff like FIFA or quite a lot of games, Grand Theft Auto, etc. But today we're going to be talking about some of my other favourite, and I mean favourite, franchises. First off, we're going to start with Worms, Forts, Under Siege. And this is a sequel to the Worms game I had on GameCube, which I did a video on my GameCube collection. So with this one, it's pretty much the same thing, apart from they've got forts to protect your worm from all the other enemies. It was pretty easy, but fun. And again, this was one of my brother's favourite games, and it was a good old kind of classic arcade game, so always good when you're young. I don't remember too much about this one, other than there were like stories or a campaign that you needed to do. And I think they tried to add a bit more diversity to the game style than the other entries into the series. From what I remember, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. But that's pretty much all I can say, because that's all I can remember. So we move on. Ultimate Spiderman. I remember this coming out, and at the time I was really captivated by the Venom character. So the idea of being able to both play as Spider-Man and Venom was quite a novelty. Developed by Treyarch of Call of Duty fame. I don't remember playing too much of this. The story seems to be that Richard Parker and Edward Brock created the Venom suit as a cure for cancer. And this does seem to be in the early days of Spider-Man's career. I think this has got somewhat cult status as a game. And maybe it's one I should go back and play. But yeah, I'd have to give it again like a 6, because it wasn't one that I spent too much time on, truth be told. The other one that I played more, we'll get to, either in this episode or the next. Time Crisis 2. So, this is where I give you one of my anecdotal stories from when I was younger. And over here, in the early 2000s, there was a lot of hype for something called Laser Quest, which was kind of like laser tag. You'd go to this warehouse with your friends or for a birthday party, and you'd all get these kind of like bibs with electronic sensors and a gun, obviously, that fires lasers. And you would go and you would run about in teams and try and shoot each other's sensor back without being shot them yourself. So there's a memory for anybody that had their birthday parties at Laser Quest. But why am I bringing that up? Well, one of the games, arcade games, and there were only like 3 that were set up at that Laser Quest, was Time Crisis 2. And I really enjoyed Laser Quest. I don't know, it was just fun, active, and I was alright at it. But my brother and I would always play Time Crisis 2 while we were waiting to go in for a game of Laser Quest. And that's a big machine where you had like a blue pistol and a pink pistol. So blue, and it should have been red, but it was more pink. And there was like a pedal that you would press down to duck out of cover and then shoot. But we loved that game. Always gravitated towards it. So I remember a year or 2 later seeing this in a game station store. And I decided to buy it. those retro TVs. You know, one of the really big, fat ones, not a flat screen. Because the gun that you would use is only able really to operate with one of the older, fatter TVs. But I've kept a hold of it for posterity's sake. And this just brings back a lot of lovely memories of, you know, being like 10 or 11 years old. And those, you know, real whimsical days where you didn't really have anything to worry about. But you always find something. It's the human condition. So, this may be a bit biased, but I'd be saying for this 7 out of 10. The graphics are not very good, because the game, I think, was released in 1996. I think. Or maybe 2000. But, yeah, it's definitely aged. But I think I'll always keep hold of this. So there you go. Next up, we've got 3 games, all of the same franchise. Snowboarding. So, I think the way to look at this is which one was the best. It's got to be this. There's no other answer really. I think most people had SSX Tricky, and whilst SSX 3 and SSX 1 were similar games, nothing had the same level of character and customizability, I should say, as SSX Tricky. So, I don't remember playing this one much, so I'll probably give it a 6. And whilst I did play SSX 3 more than the original, you know, the better graphics and whatnot, I always found myself coming back to SSX Tricky. So I'd give this a 7, but with its insane uber tricks, I think this is a real classic for the PlayStation 2, and I'd have to give it a 9 out of 10. It was just so, like, weirdly SSX Tricky. Next up is True Crime, New York City. So I went through a phase. It's not a phase, Mom. Well, it was. Of playing gangster or mafia games. And my brother absolutely loved True Crime, New York City. Played it a lot. And as it says on the back there, you're a gangster turned street cop, Marcus Reed, and it gives you a ability to abuse your authority or use it correctly to avenge the murder of your beloved mentor and take back control of the streets. I remember this game being very violent, very violent, but it also felt in some ways like I want to say a polished version of San Andreas. And I think it definitely took inspiration from San Andreas. But yeah, that's I think it's an 8 out of 10 for me. If you haven't played it and you like gangster games, that's the one that I wouldn't miss. Speaking of Mafia games, well, you can't not talk about this one. I played this Mafia 2 and a little bit of Mafia 3. This one was fine. I don't think it was as good as Mafia 2, but it was fine. Did what it needed to do. The gameplay was very similar to another game that came out around this time. And the graphics were okay. The storyline was, I think it was pretty good from what I can remember. But it definitely was overshadowed by Mafia 2 and a certain other game. So, I know they've remastered this, and I have been tempted to give it another go, but I'd give Mafia an 8 out of 10. Now, that other game I was referencing around this time, the biggest, I mean biggest, release other than Grand Theft Auto That's not a hot take. And although I was not young enough or old enough really to have this, my father was a big, big fan of The Godfather, the movie as well. So he did buy this for me. And it is incredibly well done. You start as an unnamed character that joins the lowly ranks of the Corleone family, and it's your job to go through all of the territories and to extort or buy out the various rackets and businesses within New York and take down the rival families' strongholds and penthouses or, bases. I played this from start to finish. I really enjoyed playing it with one of my friends at the time. Really got into it. And it's an experience I would love to go through again. Frankly, it was captivating to be in that world. I even bought the strategy guide to help through the missions and where to get the Dillinger and all that kind of stuff, which is like a super Tommy gun. This needs a remaster, and whilst I also really enjoyed The Godfather Part 2 on the 360, this is still the better game. It's just so masterfully done. The way that it, is interwoven with the events of the movie. The gameplay was really good. The controls were really good. The progression, the kind of territory system with the rival gangs was a lot like San Andreas, which, it was popular for a reason. So, it is very much one of my cherished games to this day. And if you haven't watched the film and you're old enough, I would recommend that too. Especially for Vito Corleone. So that is The Godfather, the game. And this is still a 10 out of 10 for me. But I'm going to slide it that way. Next is one that I've talked about before, but I'll talk about again. Simpsons Sit and Run. Predominantly, I played this on the Xbox, the original one. Don't know why. But in both versions of the game, I never quite finished it. was a mission with Lisa where you're having to, like, drive, I think it was counterclockwise, counterclockwise, around the dock, and I just could not beat it. But this game is a masterpiece, and please remaster it. There's nothing more to say. It is one of, if not the best, Simpsons video games that you can find, even to this day. So, yeah, 10 out of 10, like The Godfather. Quintessential for this generation of consoles. Next we have another sports game. At the time, golf was quite trendy because of Tiger Woods before his major fall from grace. And I remember I had a friend. It sounds like I'm very popular. Who was really into this. And that was quite infectious. There was quite a lot of new features that were added into this, but what I loved about it was the career mode, where you could create your own character and take on the tour, the Legends tour, I think, where you'd start from the bottom and you'd have to, like, win games of golf and improve your stats, and then you would meet legends of the game and you'd have to beat them as well. So at the time I felt like the pacing of the game and the progression was just about right. But I didn't get all the way to Tiger himself, and there were a couple of competitors that I just could not beat. One of those difficulty spikes or plateaus. I do remember Tiger Vision, which was very OP, very OP, and help. Effectively, it would guide you on the arc needed for a putt. I tried the one after this, but yeah, I prefer this one. And then I kind of fell off golf games. I don't know whether they're any better. They could be, or they could not be. But yeah, I did have fun with this. And I remember it quite fondly. So I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10. Okay, the next group of 3 games is, and always will be, some of my absolute favourites. this franchise was my franchise as a kid. Like, oh my god, was this good? Created by Free Radical Design, who are based in Nottingham in the UK, and they were responsible for GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64. This franchise is part of the reason I've made lifelong friends. It's part of the reason I've made a lifelong best friend. And it's probably responsible for about 60% of the time that I played on the PlayStation 2. Time Splitters 1 is a little bit rough around the edges, but you do have very, very famous and iconic characters like Lieutenant Malone, Christine Malone, Captain Ash, the Chinese chef, R107, the fishbowl guy, the mummy, Gretel, and the storyline is, as it says on the back, the Time Splitters, an evil race, dwelling outside of time and space. Throughout history, they have manipulated the fate of humanity. Now, roused from an ancient sleep, the Time Splitters cross the threshold from their shadowy dimension to confront a disparate collection of heroes who must attempt to stop them. It's an arcade shooter, and this was before cutscenes were a thing, but it was a very, very solid first entry, and it had stuff like deathmatch, capture the bag, which is you got to go and capture, the enemy team's bag, bring it back to your drop-off point to score a point. Escort, look after a NPC, last stand, knockout, and they had like 50 or so playable characters. The best thing about it was the map maker, which was a great deal of fun. So that was the original. Now these two, for the original, I'd probably give an 8 out of 10. Bit rough around the edges, but it's got a charm. These two are brilliant. So, a lot of people like to say Time Splitters 2 is the best, and I can see why. It takes a lot of the storyline or the gameplay elements from the first one, provides better graphics, more detailed stories, missions, and a load more arcade modes like Virus, Flame Tag, Team Deathmatch, Assault, all those kind of things. And on top of that, I think it also was the first to introduce a challenge mode and an arcade league mode, where basically both of them are sets of challenges where you can unlock characters by attaining bronze, silver, gold, or platinum trophy or score. And yeah, over 100 characters to unlock. And we played a load of this when we were kids. A load of them. But my favourite, and I'd give this a 10 out of 10, like it says there. My favourite was always this. The third in the trilogy, and the most cohesive in terms of its storytelling. You play as Sergeant Cortez, who you actually played as in the last game. But this time, he talks. And not only that, it's really funny. You follow him as humanity's last hope to go and try to destroy the time crystals at their source. And that means you've got to travel to Scotland and help Captain Ash. You've got to then go to the 1960s and help Harry Tipper and Kitten Celeste defeat Kalos, which then unearths the bad guy, Jacob Crow, and you follow him to 1994 and to the Haunted Mansion, where he's conducting twisted genetic experiments as part of, or the leader of, the Brotherhood of Ultra Science. So you help Jo Beth Casey there. Then you go to 2052 and help Amy Chen. Then it's 2252 and the Robot Wars with the help of R110. And then you go back to Scotland in the 1920s. And then back to your own timeline at the end of it. The storyline's great. Like top tier. And again, the sheer variety of arcade modes, the arcade leagues, which they'd expanded, the challenge modes, everything. There's 150 characters to unlock, and I think I got to 137, and I just could not get those last few. But I spent most of my time on the PlayStation 2 playing this game, and my best friend and my brother and a lot of my other friends have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and we're still waiting for another Time Splitters game. The good news is, it looks as if one is on the horizon, because the much maligned Free Radical Design, who developed the series, basically they made Haze. Then after Haze, they went bankrupt. They got bought by Crytek. Then Crytek went bankrupt. I think then they were bought by Deep Silver, and then Deep Silver reformed as Free Radical Design, again with the original team. And if you go on their website, they are in the process of making a new Time Splitters game. The Sacred Time Splitters 4. And I can't wait. It's what we need. Instead of all of these deadly serious FPSs, something with a bit of humour, and, that doesn't take itself too seriously. So, I'm going to break the rules. This is, in my humble opinion, an 11 out of 10. This is the game that hooked me onto video games and made, as I've said, so many lifelong friends and connections, and so many memories. I love it, and I'll be loyal to the franchise probably until the day I die. So yeah, putting myself out there, but I hope you can hear the passion in my voice. The next two we briefly talked about in the last one when we were talking about Call of Duty. These are the last two decent Medal of Honor games, in my opinion. Developed by EA. They're just World War II games. And I remember my dad was the one that got Frontline and wanted to play it through. And he was alright, but, he's not a gamer. And then, again, he was the one that bought Rising Sun, because he's a bit of a historian. And at the time, it was just so realistic. The opening scene with Pearl Harbor was madly realistic to my younger self. And I remember having played it, my dad playfully jumped out and surprised me, and it really, really did get me. And he was laughing and whatnot, but he proper scared me. But again, those are some of the very fond memories that I have of playing some of these video games with him and watching him go through it. They were very good for their time, but ultimately I think Call of Duty just, I think they were better. Which is a shame. And I know there have been attempts to So, go figure. I'd give Rising Sun a 9 out of 10. As long as you can put up with bad graphics compared to modern standards, they're worth a try. So, the last one for today is Looney Tunes Back in Action, based on the film. My brother and I were quite into Looney Tunes, him especially, when we were younger. Obviously, you may have seen my PlayStation 1 collection, and we played a lot of Bugs and Taz, Time Busters, when we were very young. But yeah, we got this after going to see the film with Brendan Fraser. And it was fun, but I don't think we were as into Looney Tunes at this point as we had been a few years prior, if you get what I mean. It was definitely an upgrade on Bugs and Taz. And the gameplay was more varied. But I just don't think we had the same enthusiasm as we did before. So, even for the Blue Monkey, yeah, it was fine. Not to end on a sour note, but I'd probably give this a 6. It's not as memorable for me, and I don't think I got too far into this. So, yeah, that is it for now. But fear not, we still have a lot to go. I think this might be 3 or even 4 parts. There are that many of these games that have gone. So, hopefully, you're either relaxed or, even better, you're asleep. And if you are, I hope you're dreaming softly. If you're not, I hope you would consider giving this video a like, dropping a comment below if I've talked about any of your favourite games, or, like me, you're a massive Time Splitters fan. And if you want to see more, part 3 or part 4, or go back and see any of my other video game collection videos, then why not subscribe and help this small but brilliant community reach 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with me. I've been Obsidian. This is Obsidian ASMR. And as always, take care of yourselves. other.